So before we get into this podcast, are we going to address the elephant in the room, or should we just move into Happy St. Patrick's Day?
Well, hopefully there's no elephants in this room because we're quarantined.
Yes.
So we are in Rhode Island, or Massachusetts and Rhode Island, on the line.
Yeah, my driveway is Rhode Island. My house is Massachusetts. So
yeah. So there's quite a bit going on with coronavirus, and they've asked us to not go places.
Except for that you still go to work.
I do,
so
yes.
That's awkward.
I mean, in a building with 200 people.
Yeah, that's awkward. But you sanitize, you do all the things.
I do.
Because I would not let you in my house.
It's an open floor plan, and I keep 6 feet away from people.
Yeah.
As best I can.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a hypochondriac, as many people know, and so we're being as careful as possible. I hope that everybody out there that is, I guess in any country at this point, I mean, I think it's everywhere almost. I was going to say any country affected, but it's basically everywhere. So I hope that you guys are being safe. I hope that podcasts and other social media things are helping keep company, because I'm seeing everybody is freaking out from isolation. I mean, this is my norm. So, I mean, this is Tuesday to me. Like,
without the end of world apocalypse pandemic, this is actually the dream.
Yeah.
Staying home and not having to deal with people is delightful.
Yes, but I wish that I could, go to a store and not die. Yeah. So there's that. But anyway, so I hope that these types of things, podcasts and other things, are giving you guys some reprieve. And if you guys need people to reach out to or talk to, we're around. I'm bored. Twitter, whatever. I'm also doing a lot of TikToks right now because I need humor in my life. So if you guys want to go on there, duet me, do whatever, just to have fun right now. I mean, I don't know. It's all we can really offer, but, I hope that some camaraderie comes out of this.
Right. And we do have to offer an apology for last episode.
I hate having to do these things.
We do it all of the time. So I incorrectly corrected you on the James Bond trailer that we watched.
Yes.
So I want to say sorry for that.
Thank you.
And then you had your own gaffe.
Yes. So Lee Whalen, I said she when I meant he, and I did mischaracterize because I didn't actually look up the gender of the person. So I am sorry about that. Wasn't intentional. We do these things. So let's hope we don't have a gaffe this week. And if we do, guys, can we just be nice? Because
for the love of God.
I'm so sad.
Anyway, I'm Tyler.
I'm Shay.
And this is Cinematically Correct. And this week we're doing my choice, which is a bit of a cult classic in Boston.
In Boston. I'm glad you clarified.
In Boston. Yeah. It's a cult classic, Boondock Saints.
We have a lot to say because
we do have a lot to say.
There's a lot we didn't know going into this. So
that is fair.
So yeah. So bear with us there. We're going to get into that. But before we do, you do have a beer.
I do have a drink. It's a hard cider, not a beer.
Well, we have discussed that still counts. And I want to caveat this because he does make fun of my choices for every time. At the time that this beer was purchased, which was a few weeks ago, or cider, whatever, I had a little gaffe. I wasn't able to use little doohickeys that they keep beers together with, and so I just grabbed anything that was loose. So I was very limited in my choices. So
this is Stormalong Mass Appeal. So Stormalong Brewery, I would imagine. Stormalong cider out of Sherborne and Leominster. So it's a local company.
Dang well better be for a Boston movie.
Well, I would imagine that's the only choice, really.
Right.
So I'm actually excited because I do like the occasional hard cider. I'm going to give it a 4.
A preemptive 4.
I
don't know if we've done that before, but okay. Preemptive 4. Go for it.
Well, that's nice. Nice and light and refreshing, actually.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
It's so good that we've stocked up on alcohol in these last few weeks because, you're going to be stuck here. So.
Yes, other than work. All right,
we can only hope.
Brief synopsis?
Yeah, go for it.
Brief synopsis.
All right, movie takes place in South Boston. It's two brothers that are just average guys, really, to start the movie. They have run-in with the Russian mob, and things go sideways, and they decide to pursue a new career path, killing bad guys.
That was the most boring brief synopsis I've ever heard, but, it's fine.
That's a brief encapsulation of the movie.
Yeah, that's basically what happens. I mean, it's kind of a dark comedy in and of itself. I mean...
It's also kind of just a revenge fantasy type, shoot as many people as possible because they're bad guys kind of movie.
Yeah, basically. So there's a lot to say about this movie, but let's start with the characters before we get into...
Yes.
Yeah. Willem Dafoe.
Yep.
He plays, I guess, like the lead detective.
FBI agent. He's called in to consult because the local detectives are clueless.
Yeah. Now, he's arguably the best in this film. He's not my favorite actor in the film, but he's the one that acts the best. I don't know how to put that. Like, in this particular film, he's the best.
Well, this movie, to be perfectly fair, is, while it's a cult classic in Boston, the acting is not particularly strong.
Although one of my favorite actors is in it. So do with that what you will.
But it's not a list of 6 different Oscar nominees and winners all acting in a drama. Like, that's not this movie.
No, the director put those in the trash.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's really good. He's really funny. He plays a flamboyant detective. I mean,
but he's also a self-hating flamboyant.
Yeah, it's a very I would say it's very confusing, but it is also very common for the time period of Boston.
Yeah.
We can admit that because we're from here. But just that's how people acted, and that's horrible and it's awful, and I'm glad that we've moved on from that. But that's how that was,
sadly.
So anyway,
there's also a sarcastic genius when he makes fun of the other detective Greenlee.
Oh, yeah.
Get my coffee. Get me a bagel.
He's wonderful.
Delightful.
I know him from Green Goblin, as the Green Goblin.
Spider-Man, Green Goblin.
Yeah, that's just what that's what I see
he's
when I see him.
in a lot of other things. I think he's in Platoon, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably. He's in a lot of different things. He's, probably one of the most famous actors on here. Just quickly looking through, it says Siberia, Togo, The Last Thing He Wanted.
Spider-Man is at the top.
Yeah, so I don't see Platoon, but he's in so
old
many
movie,
movies that like getting back there would be a long time. But anyway, he's in a lot. He's amazing. So I don't have much to say about his character because that's really what he does. He's the number one agent.
Sarcastic lead FBI detective looking into the murders.
Yeah. Sean Patrick Flannery plays one of the brothers. That is one of the quote saints.
Yep.
I don't know him outside of this movie at all.
I think he's actually one of the least well known of the lead cast in this movie.
Right, but I didn't hate him. I thought he was
did
good.
Fine. I had no problems there.
There was nothing there. I mean, so he plays one of the brothers. They basically decide that they're going to kill bad people, I guess is the way to word it.
Mobsters, drug dealers.
Yeah, they kind of evolve what they talk as bad people, which, the morality of that, okay. But, it's just following them along and then realizing that they are also taking after their father.
Yep.
The other brother is Norman Reedus, which, of course, is my favorite actor in this movie because I'm a female, so, I don't know.
Control yourself there, please.
Obviously, I'm not favorite actor of all time. I want to clarify, just in this movie. He is obviously known from Walking Dead.
Right.
I hope y'all have seen. If you haven't, now is the time, I guess. Just saying.
Wow, that took a dark turn.
Yeah, gotta laugh. Anyway, he's the other brother. The thing about these brothers is they're so loyal to each other, right? They'll do anything for each other, and which includes like carrying around a toilet and
up a flight of stairs because that's a pain in the ass. Right.
So that really makes you root for them because of how passionate they are together and also how they believe in their cause.
He's probably my second favorite character in this movie behind
Dafoe.
Behind their father, El Duce, because Billy Connolly is fantastic, but that's neither here nor there. He's probably the favorite of the two brothers for me.
It's hard not to be because it's Norman Reedus.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't know Norman Reedus at the time that this came out.
No, this is probably one of his starting out role kind of things where it's established him as an actor. Right,
but looking back, he's Norman Reedus. So anyway, before we move on to another character, I have to be this person. A quarantine does not stop, the need to annoy my listeners. So anyway, since we're on Norman Reedus. This one was hard, guys. Like, I almost gave up. And I will say, Stork, thank you, because you tried to give me one. But we were told on Twitter that religion cannot be used in the 6 degrees thing. So I did not take yours. I took a different one. But thank you for giving that to me. I appreciate it. Anyway, Norman Reedus was in Night of the Templar in 2013 with Max Perlich, who played Rune, which was Jackson's cousin on Gilmore Girls.
Kill me. I've decided that if you are going to continue your spiteful crusade of referencing Gilmore Girls, in retaliation, I'm going to come up with a link to Lord of the Rings.
Oh, honey, baby boo-boo, you are not that good at research.
I am. I have a link to the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Next character that we're going to be talking about, actually, Billy Connolly, is Dane in The Hobbit, Battle of the Five Armies. Done. One reference.
No, this is not going to work. So, guys, do you want us to battle this out and see who goes the longest? Me with Gilmore Girls and him with Lord of the Rings. Tell us in Twitter or Gmail or whatever the hell, however you want to contact us.
Well, I just know it's your least favorite movie of all time.
It's up there. But if you want us to keep this up, I promise you I'll win.
If I have to suffer through this, I'm going to drag you down with me. That's just
game
what
on. I'm down because I will not lose.
All right, so moving on to Billy Connolly. He's El Duce, the Duke, and the best character in this movie. Just awesome.
He is great. I mean, I wish he was in it a little bit more.
Yes, he did. He did need to be in this movie. He's such a badass the whole movie. Interesting note, one of your friends mentioned this, but we also saw this on the IMDb. They had to give him a cigar to smoke during all of his scenes because he was too busy smiling like a crazy person the whole time. I guess this is a refreshing change from his normal character. So he just loved being the bad guy villain role, and he just couldn't stop smiling, including the gunfights. Like, he was just having the time of his life.
It makes me want to do a horrible compilation video of him with Billie Eilish's bad guy in the background. just because I can. Like, it just makes me want to do that.
Well, I found that delightful that he was just so happy.
Yes, it is delightful. And thank you to one of my best friends for giving us a bunch of trivia for this movie because that really helped with my research. So hopefully we mentioned everything that you told us, but feel free to call me out if we forget to mention something. I did want to give an honorable mention to David Della Rocco. I don't think he's in much else, but he is one of the main characters in this movie, and he's probably his death scene is one of the scenes where, like, I felt most connected to things because I was just like, oh, this poor guy, like, he's kind of just an idiot. He kind of doesn't really...
He's the lovable buffoon that just got in over his head.
Right, so he was one of the reasons I was able to connect to this movie because it was one of those characters where you were just... You knew that he was dumb and he was probably going to die, but you also just wanted to like him just because of how, like, almost willfully ignorant he was.
He's almost like a puppy. Like, he's good-hearted for the most part, but an idiot.
Yeah, so there's that. Is there anybody else you wanted to mention?
Well, honorable mention, there's a gentleman that has a famous name. He plays Detective Greenlee. His name is Bob Marley, and not who you think of. He's
not Bob Marley.
He's not that Bob Marley.
Right.
He plays a stupid Boston Southie cop.
And since we're mentioning famous people, we should mention, not that anybody really needs to know this, but Ron Jeremy is in this movie, and we did not remember that watching it. He actually plays, like, an actual part. Like, he's not just a cameo. He's a person. He dies, I guess.
He gets shot, kind of in an inappropriate location, because it's like a sex den.
Yeah, he's, like, getting jacked off? I don't know exactly.
He's going to some kind of strip club / I don't know. It was weird. But... For Ron Jeremy, it fits, and he gets shot.
Yeah, and for those of you who might be more innocent, and I applaud you for so, Ron Jeremy is one of the most famous porn stars, and
actors.
He has a very long schlong, apparently. I don't know from personal experience. I know this is a thing. So
oddly enough, I think Willem Dafoe gives him a run for his money because there's like an internet debate there.
Are you trying to tell me that you know whose schlong is bigger, Willem
Dafoe
or Ron
I don't.
Jeremy?
I'm just saying that there are conversations about both of them on the internet.
Do you want them to tell us? Because they will. So I just be careful what you ask for.
If someone is going to take the time to research it, they're more than welcome to.
I don't need photos though, guys. So if you're sending photos, please direct them directly to Tyler.
No, I don't want photos either.
I'm just saying, he's the one asking.
I have seen the conversations on the internet, and I don't know why there are conversations on the internet. I don't know how I stumbled upon those
You know what? I really don't want to know. So I'm glad that we got into that conversation.
We're moving on.
Okay.
Moving on to a different category.
So, well then. Anyway, so I wanted to take a second before we get into this movie to acknowledge that we shared our excitement for doing this movie at the end of the last podcast. We, at the time, had not gone outside of our Boston bubble. We were willfully unaware that the world does not like this movie. Right. And it seems like there are some valid reasons for such. One being the director was inarguably horrible, awful, terrible person.
Well, there's a documentary about him,
and we are going to watch it.
We're going to watch it. It seems from what we have looked at so far that he's kind of just an ass. Yes,
he's a rag to riches story. He was a bartender that got given a lucrative deal by Harvey Weinstein. Do with that what you will.
Horrible person. Yes. We've talked about that previously.
Yes, but this director did, Troy Duffy, basically shit on every opportunity he was given, and he just treated everyone horribly.
It's almost like he got to being famous and he forgot that you still have to be a person.
Right.
Like, you don't just get to start treating people terribly because you are making a movie. That's not how life works. I mean, at some point, the goodwill is going to run out. Like, that's just, your money's going to run out. The people are going to stop liking you and stop talking to you. It's
right.
Don't be an ass for the sake of being an ass.
Right. So, I mean, given that we're from Boston and we were in a little bubble, I do think that our opinions may shift a tiny bit once we've seen this documentary and really understand the gravity of how awful of a person he really was. But I do want to say that it is a movie that has a lot of nostalgia for us, has a lot of just, I guess, Boston camaraderie tied to it. I mean, if you're from Boston and you never seen it and you don't watch it around St. Patrick's Day, like, you're the odd one. Like, there's something wrong with you.
You are on the outside looking in if you're from this area and you haven't at least seen this on or around St. Patrick's Day.
Right. I mean, that's just, so, I mean, I guess there is kind of a herd mentality when it comes to this around here. So I want to...
It's a tribalism thing. It's this is our thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to acknowledge that. And I also, I mean, you mentioned this, that there is something to be said for separating the director from the movie.
Yes.
In certain scenarios.
Well, yeah, so you can be a terrible person and still create something good that is separate from you as a person.
Right. And the example that the internet gives to that would be Roman Polanski with Chinatown. Roman Polanski, you cannot, and please don't ever say he's a good person given what he's done.
No, he's a terrible person.
But that does not affect the fact that he was arguably one of the best directors of his time.
I mean, even Hitler killed Hitler. So...
Right, but then there are, on the other side of that scale, there's Harvey Weinstein, where there are some movies that when you look back at them, the way he deals with women in the movies, the way the characters, the sexual comments, all of that takes on a new light.
It takes a much darker tone given the circumstances and the convictions and allegations surrounding him, and it colors your opinion of why that scene is in the movie,
right?
And just makes it really uncomfortable,
right?
Which is different than having this movie, which is a fine movie, and the person who made it is an ass.
Right. Okay. So from there, I mean, this is kind of out of order from what I wrote down, but I do kind of want to talk about the fact that because this was a rags to riches movie, it was expected to go through Miramax, and it was going to be a Harvey Weinstein thing, and it was going to be this big thing. Harvey Weinstein kind of thought it was going to be the next Tarantino. I mean, it's kind of a similar style.
It's similar.
Not as good. I mean, I think we can all admit Tarantino is better. I mean...
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Okay. But from there, Miramax actually pulled out. Right. And I believe it was in 1997. And they decided to not fund this movie. They actually asked him to pay back his $150,000 director fee and his $700,000 budget for production. He was able to keep his $300,000 writer fee. But they pulled out. And from everything I read, they pulled out because he was a dick. So he was turning down, like, really great people. Brad Pitt, because of his Irish accent, wasn't good enough.
Keanu Reeves, he called a punk.
Ethan Hawke was something else.
Talentless fool.
Yeah. So, he was crapping on people. He had a meeting with Ewan McGregor to do one of the roles, and he got blackout drunk, and he ended up fighting with him over the death penalty, so he backed out. So there was just a lot of things that he did that were just not great. And so they ended up backing out, and the movie went out to a limited release in, I think it was for 7 days. I don't quote me on that part, but it was limited. And Blockbuster ended up saving them. Now, the director himself says that the reason that the movie went to a limited release is because it was filmed right after Columbine, and due to the political landscape, the theaters wouldn't take it. I don't know how true that is.
I mean, I'm sure that factored in. I mean, you'd have to be oblivious to not think that was part of it, but I would argue that it was probably just more of a, we don't want to deal with your garbage, man, so we're just going to say that because we don't want to call you a dick to your face.
Right. It feels like it was a convenient excuse. It's what it feels.
Right. You're using that as an excuse, but really they just didn't want to have to deal with your bullshit. Right.
And now we do understand that there's a lot more to this story than that. We still have to watch the documentary, and I almost wish we watched it before doing the podcast, but didn't find out about it until too late. So It is what it is. But if you guys do want an update on all of that, we will be watching it, and we can always do like a preface thing at the beginning of one of our podcasts and give you an update. So let us know if you want to know more about that. We'll be watching it. It's on Amazon Prime if you're interested. It's called Overnight. So anyway, let's move on to the actual meat of the movie.
Okay.
So the biggest question, right?
Yep.
What is the morality of killing bad people because they're bad people?
Well, so it's tied to that, and it's also the opening scene when they're in the church. The priest gives that really great quote: "We must all fear evil men, but there is another type of evil that we must fear: the indifference of good men." Mm-hmm. Where it's one thing to be a bad person. It's one thing to do horrible things, and that is not acceptable. It's slightly less to be a good person but then not do the right thing because the right thing is not convenient. Whether it's pulling over onto the side of the road to help someone with a flat tire, or standing up for someone that's getting bullied or attacked, and doing the right thing to provide a better circumstance for everybody. Like that's part of being part of a community. You have a responsibility to make the world a better place. I feel personally, you should always strive to be positive rather than negative.
So that extends to killing people.
In certain circumstances, I would argue, yeah, probably. I mean, I don't disagree with the death penalty on its face. I disagree very much on the death penalty for how it's currently implemented.
But who makes you the judge? Who makes you the be-all judge?
I'm not saying that I should necessarily be the judge, but there should be a real clear, workable system in place to correct the injustices in society. I mean, the death penalty as it stands now is a horrible institution, and it shouldn't be used how it is currently being used. But that's not the same as saying that certain people are beyond redeeming and society's better off without them.
I can agree with that. So, I mean, as I think I've mentioned before on the podcast, I have a conflicted opinion on the death penalty, and it pulls here too. So my confliction is that people are not black and white. So if you were to do a horrible thing, that does not in turn make you a horrible person. You are complicated. There are extenuating circumstances. There are environments. There are all different things that lend to that. So for an outside person to make a judgment on you based on an action, I don't think is fair. I don't think that's a appropriate thing. You can't do said things. So for me in this movie, while I enjoy it and I think it's fun and whatever, if it were to happen in real life, I don't know that I would support it, because I don't see how two brothers can, on the outside looking in, be able to judge what someone is doing. While wrong, I don't know that you can judge that they deserve to die. There's a scale here, and I don't know that two people on the outside can really be able to make that determination. So,
well, it's one of those things where not all crimes are equal. Not all crimes are worthy of being killed. I mean, selling drugs, well, it's a horrible thing. I don't know if you necessarily have to get shot in the face for it.
See, and I run that scale, because I believe if you sell drugs to a child and the child dies, you might deserve to die. But
well, that's a sliding scale. There's also if you're a serial murderer and actual predator, I don't think that you have any say in staying in the community because you've proven that you're beyond redeeming. Like you're not fixable. You're not going to get better. You're not going to be normal.
Right.
So
right, I can agree there. I just think that this does kind of speak to a larger issue of there is a lot more to a crime, a lot more to a criminal than the crime. Right. So we, even as a society, as a system, we need to do better about being able to look at an entire picture rather than saying, you did this and I'm going to make everything fit into that so that the punishment that I have deemed appropriate at an overall level is going to attach to you.
Right. It also speaks to who is watching the people in charge of making those decisions, who is overseeing that they're doing things correctly, and then who's watching those people.
Right.
There's no, at some level, somebody is making all of the decisions, and who's to say that person is doing things how we've all agreed to.
Right. And I mean, that is kind of spoken to a little bit in this movie because Willem Dafoe has kind of like a morality check on himself where he's like, well, I actually think what they're doing is right, and I think I want to help them. I want to let them go. But he shouldn't be doing that because of his job. He's supposed to stick to rules and laws. So then it becomes, when is it okay for that person to decide, the person who should be incarcerating people, to decide that they're going to deviate, and who gives them that power and all of that. So there's a lot of questions here. I don't know how I feel. I'm trying to enjoy it as a fun movie.
Right.
But if it were to happen in real life, I don't think I would be so on board.
No, it's the ultimate fantasy for like a revenge fantasy, guy fantasy, where you go out and kill bad people because you're the good guy.
Because you're a dude.
You're the good guy. They're the bad guy. The good guy has to do whatever you have to do. Like, that's just the stereotypical thought.
Right. I mean, because men are simple.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about simple men, I did think that we can move into the male power fantasy.
Okay.
Reddit is kind of all about that. So if you don't know, Reddit hates this movie. Like, hates it, which is surprising to me. I mean, I'm in Boston.
It's surprising, but it's also not surprising, given that there's very much the culture on Reddit of the white knight. I'm going to stand up for what is socially acceptable and what I think is right, and you're wrong.
Surprisingly, that's their stance, considering they pretty much hate women. But fine, whatever. We'll deal with that on another time. But so anyway, so they talk about it being a male power fantasy thing and how horrible that is. And as a woman, I do often like to talk about the Bechdel test in movies, and I like to talk about the way they represent women. And I have to say, they're horrible at it in this movie.
Can we even say that they deserve to have the Bechdel test attempted? There's 3 women in this movie. 2 of them are junkies.
Right. So there's no good representation of women in this movie. But what I can say is there's also no horrible representation. Like, yes, they're junkies or whatever, but like...
But there's also the giant butch lesbian at the start of the movie.
Yes.
There's the 2 they're not positive.
There's nothing positive here. There's nothing good, but there's no direct connection to the main characters. The main characters don't do anything to women. There's nothing there
other
where
than
I
punch
can...
them in the face, but yes.
Okay, we'll get to that because that's an audience ask that I do want to talk to you about. But my point is that they don't have like relationships with women that we can see how they would interact or any of that kind of stuff. So we don't have any of that. Right. It's not a great movie for women. If you're a feminist and you're looking for a rah-rah women movie, this ain't it. So
ain't the movie for you.
Right. Now, the male power fantasy thing is also not necessarily something women are super fond of because of what it can turn into. So how did you feel when knowing that that's kind of what this is?
Well, it's kind of the stereotypical action movie. It's the good guys, bad guys, good guys always win. Like, that's just, there's not a whole lot deeper than that. I mean, there's just we're going to shoot a lot of bad guys.
Right. And their version of bad guys evolves over the movie,
right.
Which is questionable, to say the least, because, like, where does that stop? Because, I mean, as you get more power and you realize how well you're doing and you realize that you're getting away with it, that ego grows. I mean...
Well, at some point, you are turning into a bad guy for killing all these people. Like, you are now meeting the definition of a serial killer because you've killed more than one person.
Yeah,
you've killed more than 3 people, each one of you collectively. there's a lot of dead people that they are responsible for in this movie.
Right. And I mean, it does seem that the film really does side with the two brothers. I mean, they kind of seem to show them as almost martyr type people. However, the scene where they are holding up an entire group of innocent people in a courthouse, to me, if I hadn't known anything about the director, I would have thought that that was kind of a point of the movie kind of saying like, hey, these people are getting too far. They're too power hungry. They're losing their minds, because I don't think a lot of people would say that that was okay. You don't force women and children and innocents to watch murder. That's just, there's no reason for that, and that's awful.
Right.
And I thought that that was kind of the film's way of saying like they've reached that point of like, this isn't okay anymore. But now after reading about the director, I think that that was just a pinnacle. I've got all the power now, and everyone's going to watch me have it.
Well, it's going to be the look at me, look at the good thing that I'm doing. There's nothing deeper there. There's no, they're turning into the very thing that they're trying to prevent. It was just a, we're gonna do this good thing. You're gonna watch it, kind of rah moment.
Right, which really, in retrospection, doesn't feel so good on the inside. But again, watching it as a fun movie and not trying to tear it apart, it's fun to watch. But yeah, we're gonna have to keep saying that, because there are things in here that are just, I mean,
there's that, and there's just gaffes and goofs that are along the way. Like he only has one rule: no women, no children. That's 2 rules.
Well, yes.
Lies. That's in fact 2 rules. 2 separate, distinct classes of people. All right. So where do you want to go from there?
Well, I mean, so I wish that I could really tear apart the plot and give you all like a bunch of things, but really, that's really what the plot is. It's just them going around killing bad people.
Yeah.
But there is another little plot point that we haven't talked about that I have to talk about. The cat dies?
Yeah, the cat definitely gets shot. I've said this before in other movies. Never, under any circumstances, drink and handle firearms.
Like that's just that.
No. That goes against the very nature of responsible gun ownership, and it's so cringeworthy. Every time I watch this movie and any other movie that it happens in, I get a pit in my stomach because nothing good will happen.
Yeah, and I have to say, so I've said in, I think, every podcast that an animal has been injured or potential of being injured in, that's the worst thing for me. I can watch people die all day long, but animals I can't. So I didn't appreciate how nonchalant it was treated in the movie. It was almost like it was a joke. Now, Granted, I'm a dog person. Full on dog person.
We're both dog people. We're both allergic to cats.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I want to clarify. I mean, I'm not like...
I'm not advocating shooting cats, but...
No, I don't like them per se, but I don't want them dead. Right. So I didn't love the nonchalance and the way that they kind of like laughed it off, and the way that they kind of like were like, the girl doesn't like even take care of her cat, doesn't even know the name. So like, too bad for her. Like that, but that's not the cat's problem. Like you killed the cat. Yeah. So
that's her problem. That's her failing as a person, not being a responsible pet owner. That's not the cat's fault. That's not the animal's fault. I mean,
right. And I was hoping that, like with Snatch, when we read about the fact that the reason that there was animal abuse, I'm putting quotes around it because no animal was actually abused, but you know what I mean.
Right.
In that movie was because they had a conversation with someone and found out the most hated person is someone who hurts animals.
Yeah.
And so that kind of made me feel like, okay, so they did that purposely. They wanted a villain. This movie didn't have that, and... No,
because the person that did it is the goofball idiot.
Yeah.
And it just kind of just was thrown in there unnecessarily. Yeah. They didn't need that scene at all.
Yeah, so I wanted to just make sure I went on the record to say that scene was not okay by me. It's never been okay by me, and I've always just kind of like been like blocking that out. So
now, related to Snatch, you did not like that movie at all.
I did not. Nope. No.
You do enjoy this movie.
I do.
And they are similar, not the same, but similar in their scope, in their plot.
What are you trying to say here? Are you trying to attack me?
Well, I'm asking why do you like this movie versus Snatch when the acting in Snatch is better, the cinematography is better? What makes this movie better in your eyes?
Okay, movie snob. First of all, I will admit that the acting and cinematography is in fact better in Snatch, and I believe I actually said in Snatch that those were things I liked about the movie. I did preface.
Yes.
One of the things that I had a big issue with was humor in Snatch, which I know I mentioned. Yep. I called it stupid humor. Yep. In this movie, while there was dumb humor for sure, it was a different kind of dumb humor. It wasn't I'm just going to repeat something over and over again. You're going to laugh because it's so obvious. Like, it wasn't that. It was more, making violence funny, which is horrible and awful, but I'm also a dark person and I kind of enjoy that. I know I'm a bad person, but I can't help it. So there's that. But there's also the nostalgia attached, right? I mean, I'm from Boston and everybody in Boston likes Boondock Saints, and it's kind of like, it was ingrained in me from when it came out that I was going to like Boondock Saints, and if I didn't, I was probably, there was something wrong with me. So I think we are definitely shaped by where we are, for sure.
I also think that for you personally, there's a better connection to the characters. You root for those people more because you have a...
Well, you have an understanding, right?
They're more sympathetic characters than the people in Snatch, where they're just all thrown together in a pot.
Right, and you also see the progression of them starting off kind of protecting each other to then realizing, like, these people are horrible people and they're trying to take a bar from somebody I love and care about. So I'm going to get rid of not just the people that did it specifically, but people like them. Right. So you saw that progression and the trajectory of that, and I think it made it easier for me to be like, yeah, I'm for that cause. Like, yes, do that. Like, you know, while I understand that it's not the right way to go about it or whatever, it's easier to connect and easier to understand. Where in the Snatch movie, I didn't really feel, I didn't really understand any kind of reasons, connections, anything. It was just kind of like, it's going to just keep going around until it gets to the person it was meant to go to. That's the point. That's what we're rooting for here.
Well, the motivation is just a diamond. It's not, there's nothing
for me to root for. There's no human interest, really, except for, like, greedy people. Like, I mean, there's no, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, I guess that's fair. I really enjoyed Snatch because I like the whole multiple stories thrown together.
Well, maybe if I lived in England, then I would have a more personal connection. I don't know. I admit that it's wrong, that I should like both if I'm going to like one or the other, but here we are. So I'm an anomaly mixed in an enigma, so I don't know what to say.
Okay. Where? I don't know what to say. History Minute?
So, yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much everything to do with the movie. I don't think we left much out. I don't know. There are Boston landmarks that we should mention. You know, the jail, the Suffolk County Jail, that it's the old jail now. It's not the Suffolk County Jail now. Is now a 4-star hotel in Boston. The church that they filmed in was a Lutheran church because all Catholic churches wanted nothing to do with this movie.
Well, so, to my understanding, the Catholic Church has a very clear guideline on the morality of things.
Really?
Where any murder is not permitted because it's a violation of the 10 Commandments. Obviously.
Thou shalt not kill is a thing? Oh my God,
Thou shalt not kill.
Yeah,
and
didn't know.
They objected to this movie because even though they're bad people, it's still killing bad people.
I can understand.
I can actually understand and respect their opinion on that and their stance that they didn't want to be a part of that because it would be a compromise to their values.
Right. I will also say that while a lot of this was shot in Boston, a lot of it was not.
A lot of it was shot in Toronto, which I had no idea.
Right, which was kind of sad to me. I kind of was hoping it was, like, all Boston. The director himself is from Boston, but I don't want to claim him, so, like, he can be from anywhere. That's fine. And I did want to just say, while we love this movie and we call it a Boston movie, especially because we're a day away from St. Patrick's Day, it's not the Boston movie. It's not the movie that we're going to hang our hat on. I think that there's probably a few out there, but the first one that came to our minds anyways was The Departed.
Departed.
And it's by every measure a better movie. It's a
better story, better cast, better directing.
Right. It won a bunch of awards. It was nominated for awards. It was a better movie, and we will be doing that movie because, like, I don't think we can call us movie Boston podcasters. If we don't, that's wrong. We just got to fit it into the schedule. But I wanted to just acknowledge that this is not the pinnacle Boston movie, so, like, please don't pin us to it.
There are a lot of really good Boston movies out there. The Departed is at the top of the list, but there are several others.
Right. So I just wanted to put that out there because my opinion of this movie has altered just a bit after the research, unfortunately.
I mean, the only other movie that I can think of off the top of my head is Good Will Hunting.
Oh, I love that movie so much.
Exactly.
See, so Boston movies obviously have a place in our heart, so that is what it is, and we will be doing them. So, anyway.
They are on the list. They just, we get sidetracked. It's not our fault.
Yeah, I have ADHD. Leave me alone. Anyway,
we try.
You have a history minute. They're actually interesting this time. I'm really excited.
So I have a few history minutes.
Tyler's History Minute.
So the first one, the opening scene where the priest is giving a speech about we should all fear evil men. Mm-hmm. He gives a story about Kitty Genovese, which is a true story, where a woman in New York City was stabbed, assaulted, and died while there were people that either heard what was going on, saw what was going on, or both, and no one stepped in, no one called the police, no one did anything until it was too late.
It's awful.
Where she said, "I'm being stabbed," or "help me," and just screams out for help, and then no one responded. And it was such an eye-opening circumstance that it has now become part of psychology.
The Genovese syndrome.
The Genovese syndrome, or the bystander effect, where if there's an emergency and you are trying to help or you're being involved, you don't say, "Can someone help me?" or "I need someone to help me." You point to a person and say, "You have to help me. You call 911 because otherwise you're not going to help."
Right.
Which is why another public service, if you see something happening where someone is needing help, either help them or contact the police.
Right. I agree.
Because if you're driving down the highway and you see a car accident, your first thought is somebody certainly has already called.
Right.
But it's better that they get more than one phone call rather than no phone calls.
Agree.
So just throw that out there. I've done that myself a number of times where I've seen something that is significantly unsafe, and just I wanted to make sure that something is being done. So, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
The other history minute that I have is the rule of thumb, which is also the beginning of this movie when they're in the meat packing plant, and the woman says, "You want to know where the rule of thumb came from?" And it was men were allowed to beat their wives if they used a stick no thicker than their thumb, which for some men is thicker than others because some men have large hands.
Yes, we've now talked about large hands and large slongs, so this is a great podcast.
What's interesting is that's not really the definition or where it comes from. It comes from historically England and measuring cloth specifically. So it comes from the cloth trade. The rule of thumb, it's about an inch, give or take. It was mentioned a couple times. The first rumored occurrence is Sir Francis Buller, who was rumored to have said it in 1782. He was a judge at the time, and he said something where it shouldn't be illegal if a woman is hit with a stick no bigger than a thumb. And he was actually called out hard on that.
Good. Even back then.
Deservedly
that's
so.
Great.
Back then, people drew political cartoons with him holding a bunch of sticks and a man beating his wife to death with a stick. And it's legal.
Oh, I'm glad that happened.
It's also actually cited in American judicial cases. It was upheld in Mississippi in 1824. That said it was fine.
Yikes.
Because it's the old ancient rule of thumb.
Yikes.
It was cited in North Carolina in 1873. But other than that, it's really not mentioned, and it was really tied to domestic abuse in the 1970s as trying to show an example, even though it was not necessarily the actual rule or the original meaning of the phrase. Mm-hmm. So don't hit people at all.
Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah. Nice. So those are the two that I got for the...
So Tyler's History 10 minutes.
Yeah. It was 2 minutes.
It was actually interesting, which you don't always do. So I'm really proud of you for that. Thank you for that.
Actually, I do have one.
Oh, of course you do.
You're killing me here. Mm-hmm. I just remembered. I did want to talk about the IRA.
Okay.
So IRA is not individual retirement account in this instance. It's the Irish Republican Army.
I was literally just going to say Roth IRA?
No. So the IRA is an Irish organization that has a lot of controversy surrounding it related to Northern Ireland and the English occupation and bombings and terrorism and so forth. Not to pick sides because the English are also at fault. Mm-hmm. There's that one scene in the movie where they're handing over the Russians cash and guns, and they they go into an Irish IRA, the guns dealer, and just pick out a bunch of guns. Mm-hmm. That's actually something that is an established thing. So don't fuck with the IRA, because they will either shoot you or blow you up.
Oh, well, thank you for that. I don't think I'll come in contact with them, but I'm glad to have the PSA.
Well, just it's in a bunch of other movies as well. The movie that we went on our first date, Jackie Chan's movie, they deal with the IRA.
We should do that movie just because we need to tell that story.
I think that's fair. That's one of the more recent Jackie Chan, but I can't think of the name off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's how much we liked it.
But it's mentioned there as well. So that is the last of the history.
That is the last?
Yeah.
Okay. So we are well
45.
over time, but you know what? You guys needed a little bit of extra because you're stuck in a house with nobody to talk to. So you're welcome. So audience asks.
Audience asks.
Audience asks.
Now, we don't have a ton, which I was surprised until I researched the movie, so now I understand. The Crossover Podcast said, Norman Reedus punches a woman in the face less than 5 minutes in. How are you supposed to root for a character like that?
I mean, to be fair, she hit someone else in the...
You had a really good quote, and I was really hoping you were going to use it.
So, this is the thing where certain people have said it, and I said it because other people have said it, and it's not necessarily my opinion.
Uh-huh.
Equal rights also means equal lefts, which really means if you have equal rights, which you absolutely should, you also have to take on equal responsibilities and expectations. So if you punch someone in the face, you can't then be surprised if someone punches you in the face. Like, that's A to B. Like,
and I think we also have to caveat a little bit. Now, I am a feminist, I think-ish, something, I don't know. I'm confused. But I think we do have to caveat that this woman wasn't a me-sized woman, right? She wasn't
she's not a
defenseless,
5'2", 100-pound small person.
Right. She wasn't cowering. She wasn't, you know. Actually, the brothers were smaller than her. And while, yes, men are stronger and blah, 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 she did that knowing what could happen. She was instigating a fight, and while he probably shouldn't have punched her, it's at the same time she probably shouldn't have done it either.
She shouldn't have taken the rule of thumb so seriously when he said it, because he was obviously just being a smartass. Like, your right to get angry stops at my face.
Yeah.
So if I say something that you find offensive, you're allowed to say you're an ass or you're a terrible person. You're not allowed to then turn around and hit me in the face.
Yeah.
Even if I say, I hate your family, or I killed your dog.
Right.
Like, if I say those things, you can, it stops. But if I do those things, that's in fact a crime.
Right. So, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, this was showing the camaraderie of the brothers at the time. Right. It was trying to kind of show them banding together. I don't agree with punching. I don't agree with punching anyone. Okay, full stop. I don't agree with that. You should not hit people. But it didn't necessarily take away from me rooting for them, because she wasn't in any way a sympathetic character, and I didn't feel that the movie was portraying it in a way that I should feel bad. So, I don't know. It's complicated because I want to say, absolutely, that's horrible and I should denounce him, but I struggle with that a little.
There shouldn't be the expectation of you cannot do anything to either protect yourself or your family if someone is acting aggressively.
Right.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with punching her in the face. She did instigate violence. Like, that. She's not an innocent person that is just walking down the street and gets sucker punched.
Right, exactly. So it's complicated, but
just don't hit anyone ever, unless...
Yeah, like, how about we just go, don't hit people? Let's not say don't hit men or women or whatever. Just don't hit people.
Don't hit people, and if you do hit people, don't be surprised if they hit you back.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
That happens.
It does. Okay. We haven't talked about the Contrarians in a while, so I wanted to bring them up. They're you know, for Contrarians, they're usually on our side, and I'm down for it.
They're not contrarian?
Well, they are on their podcast, but I'm down for the fact that they usually agree with us, and that's probably because we always have unpopular opinions. But anyways, if you guys need more podcasts to listen to during this time, definitely go check them out. But anyway, they said, on a scale where 1 is barely emoting and 10 is overreacting like a cartoon, would you say Willem Dafoe is a 30 or a 50 in this movie?
Yeah, he does kind of have a lot of over exaggerated acting and facial expressions.
The gunfight dancing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but it also goes to the movie, so it works.
I mean, I thought that his acting, so this is how I felt. The emoting became more and more and more as his character started almost like losing his mind more and more and more. And it kind of like showed that mental like unraveling, and I kind of loved it.
I mean, have you seen a Willem Dafoe movie before? That's his thing. Like,
right.
Green Goblin, he goes crazy.
Right.
Like, that's the same person. It's just a different movie.
Right, exactly. So would I give it a 30 or a 50? I would give it a 50. I mean, yeah.
I'd give it a Willem Dafoe.
Exactly.
He has his own scale.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the best part, right? To watch that. That's just, he's so much fun. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about that because I just thought it was cute and funny. We should mention that he does wear platform shoes in this so he doesn't look short, which I thought was adorable.
I mean, people in Hollywood are obsessed with height because Tom Cruise does the same thing where he doesn't allow anyone in the movie to look taller than him.
Right, and we said back when we did She's All That Kiefer Sutherland wouldn't let Freddie Prinze Jr. wear shoes because he didn't want him to be taller.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's crazy, the height thing.
Just let it go. I mean, I guess I'm a little bit biased because I'm 6'2", but...
And I must be biased because women are expected, or it's almost like they're adorable if they're short. Like,
well, it's a different standard that you're measured against. Measured.
Okay, anyway.
We're done. Before we get to anything else, I almost forgot that there is a Star Trek reference in this movie, and we have to shout out Stork.
Oh, this makes my heart happy. They have a bromance, and it's growing.
No, we're just trying to not mend fences rather than knocking them down.
And I'm glad that you were saying it because I already made a goof up this week with Star Wars versus Star Trek. So.
Yes, you did. She does it all the time. So they talk about Spock, McCoy, and because they are in the bar before the Russian bar fight scene. So it's just
Norman Reedus that says it, right?
Norman Reedus, I believe, or the other brother. It's one of the two brothers, yeah. Says it, and then there starts the bar fight after making a Star Trek reference.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Stork.
Yeah. So again, if you guys need more podcasts, he does a Star Trek podcast. Did I get it right this time?
Star Trek podcast.
I got it. Woo! Got it.
Yes.
So you can find him on our Twitter, or he's Stork on Twitter. But yeah, definitely check them out. And I love this budding bromance. I'm really proud of it.
Just mending fences. It's not a bromance. It's just mending a rift.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Because he seems to be coming out on your side lately. So I think there's something going on behind the scenes. I think I should be jealous. I don't know. Peacock, maybe check that out on your side. We'll see. Anyway,
really?
Yeah. Anyway.
All right.
Anyway. Okay, so I think that's everything for this movie. So we have to move into reviews, which...
Reviews and ratings.
Reviews.
Rough.
So Rotten Tomatoes has it at 22. For the critic score, 22%.
Yikey, wawa.
Audience score of 91. So that tells me that the people that are rating it normally just love the male revenge, do the right thing, kill bad guys thing, and they're not looking at anything else, anything deeper, because there's no fantastic acting. I mean, it's fine.
Right.
There's no...
This is a movie to enjoy that you're just sitting back and watching a movie. This isn't a movie to enjoy for the cinematics or the
It's a guilty pleasure movie. It's you watch it because you wanted to just have nostalgia, or you wanted to watch...
Or you're from Boston.
You're from Boston, or you just wanted a movie that you didn't have to think about, that you could just watch.
Right, but this also tells me that because there's so much hatred for it on the internet, people are rating and not what they're saying. Because if you go on Reddit, every thread is how horrible this movie is, but it still has a 91%. So something's not adding up here. So hate watching and then happily giving it a good review without telling anybody anonymously.
Well, I think that's probably part of it, where you can throw stones publicly and then still guilty watch.
Yeah, exactly.
And enjoy the movie.
Yeah. So what's your review?
So after researching it and finding out more, it does lose a little bit of points. I would have given it probably an 8.5, 9 before, because it's a Boston movie and it's just pure nostalgia. I've owned several copies and they've been stolen. I would say probably 7.
That's exactly where I was going.
7?
7. Yeah, I was going to say 7 too. I mean, I was at like an 8 because, I didn't love the movie. It wasn't my favorite movie ever. It's an action movie. I'm not super into action movies. But I liked it. I'm from Boston, but the director stuff does definitely take some stuff away. And I can say that it might take more away after the documentary. So, yeah, I reserve the right to amend.
Remains to be seen. We will reserve judgment to amend that rating.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's it for this movie.
Yep.
We do have a movie coming up next week. And
Yes.
Your budding bromance will grow stronger because Stork recommended us to do The Hustler after we did our last Paul Newman movie. And I can't resist the urge to do another Paul Newman movie because those eyes, and I think those eyes are really going to get me through this tough time. So I thought it was a really good time to, do that. And we've been doing a lot of crime movies, and I kind of wanted to kind of go upswing, we're just going to keep getting those ratings higher for those crime movies. So we're going to do that, and you're going to just rekindle that romance with Stork, and it's going to get stronger, and it's going to be great. Are you excited?
No.
I'm here for it.
I'm excited for the movie. I'm because I've seen the trailer and it looks interesting.
It does actually look like a really good movie.
I'm totally down. I mean, Paul Newman is fantastic in everything he's ever done, I think. I don't know that I've ever seen him in a movie that I didn't like.
And he's arguably a wonderful human being.
Yeah, he started a company to donate to charity.
Right. So neither one of us have seen it. We're really excited. It's an audience recommend, obviously. And we try to do them once a month. So this is that. And I had to pick Stork because of your budding romance. So it's a lovely thing. So anyways, I hope you guys are all staying safe. I hope everybody is, social distancing, all of that stuff that I can't believe I have to say out loud. But here we are. The world we're living in right now. So anyway, if you want to talk to us because you need human contact, we're on Twitter. I'm at CinematicallyC. Tyler is Blame Tyler CC. As I always say, please tag me, but he is going to be probably on his phone more because I have to assume businesses will be shutting down soon. So yeah.
Well, my office is not yet shut down. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. We are on TikTok. Well, I am, and he's on my TikTok. Queen Shay CC. Because y'all people did that for a while, and I loved it. So that's where we are. So we do funny things. You can email us, all of that. So human contact you can have through us if you need it. But I think
human contact without the contact.
Yeah, it's through the screen. The best we can do.
Yeah.
So, anyways, thank you to Jake It Out This Music for our intro and outro music, and we will be back next week with The Hustler.
Thank you for listening.